Before the great armies of the First World War ever picked up a spent brass casing and bent it into a windproof lighter, there were children, displaced, cold, and honestly resourceful beyond anything their years should have demanded, doing exactly the same thing with whatever the war left behind. This is not a story you will find in most history books. It lives in the margins, in the testimony of aid workers, in the sketches of relief photographers who captured hollow-cheeked boys hunched over campfires, turning tin cans into tools of survival with nothing but stones and desperation. Imagine a landscape scraped raw, villages reduced to foundation stones, the smell of wet ash and turned earth hanging over everything like a second sky. By 1915, the refugee crisis spawned by the Western Front had displaced hundreds of thousands of civilians, many of them children separated from parents by shelling, conscription, or death. These children gathered in makeshift camps on the edges of Belgium and northern France, surviving in conditions that rival anything documented in the trenches themselves. Nights dropped to near freezing. Wind came off the flat agricultural plains with nothing to break it. Fire was not a comfort, it was medicine, food, and the only boundary between life and exposure. Learning to make it hold against the wind was survival literacy. What these children developed independently and through shared knowledge passed from older refugees and wounded soldiers passing through camps was a windproof flame system built entirely from discarded tin cans, wire salvaged from broken field equipment, and wick material torn from hemmed clothing. The basic principle was elegant. A perforated outer tin sleeve was fitted around a smaller interior chamber housing the wick and fuel, typically rendered animal fat or whatever oil could be scrounged. The perforations were not random. Older children who had watched soldiers work learned to angle them downward and inward, creating a draft channel that drew air toward the base of the flame rather than across its top. Wind, instead of killing the flame, was redirected to feed it. Hands that remembered. The knowledge was tactile and communal. There were no blueprints. A girl in a Flemish relief camp might show a younger boy how to use a sharpened nail to punch the holes at the right angle, pressing the metal against a wooden block to keep it from collapsing. The spacing mattered. Too close, and the airflow became turbulent. Too far apart, and the windshield lost its effect. This was empirical engineering, learned through failure, refined through repetition, and shared through demonstration. It mirrors precisely the iterative prototyping process taught in modern engineering schools, except here the stakes were not a grade. They were whether your group ate a warm meal or went cold into another brutal night. Fire as morale and medicine. Beyond warmth, controlled fire in these camps served functions that modern survivalists recognize immediately. Boiling water, even briefly, dramatically reduced waterborne illness in camps where sanitation had entirely broken down. Warming food reduced caloric expenditure from shivering. And perhaps most importantly, a steady, reliable flame at the center of a group of people carries a psychological weight that is almost impossible to overstate. Morale in survival situations is not a soft concept. It is the difference between a group that problem solves and a group that collapses. These children, in building something that worked reliably against the wind, were building shared confidence as much as they were building a lighter. The Bushcraft legacy. What makes this episode essential for every Fieldcraft Chronicles viewer is not just the historical drama, it is the direct application. The windproof tin can lighter these children engineered follows the same fluid dynamics principles embedded in every modern stormlighter. every Trangia-style windshield, and every Dakota fire hole used by bushcrafters worldwide today. Understanding why the angled perforations work teaches you how to improvise a windscreen for any open flame in the field. Understanding how they sourced and prepared their wick material teaches fuel discipline. Understanding how they maintained and shared fire across a group teaches the social architecture of survival, because no one in the field or in history has ever truly survived alone. Carry it forward. The children of those refugee camps left no patents, no memorials, no named inventions. Most left no record at all. But they left a method, practical, replicable, and brilliant, that connects directly to the skills you are building every time you step into the field. Their ingenuity deserves to be named, studied, and carried forward. That is what Fieldcraft Chronicles exists to do. If this episode opened a door for you, walk through it. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles so you never miss a piece of forgotten fieldcraft brought back to life. Share this video with the history lovers, the preppers, the bushcrafters, and the quietly curious in your life, because the best survival knowledge has always belonged to everyone, and stories like this one are far too important to disappear again.